From winning multiple Grammys while working with the group The Fugees, to getting involved in an international $4.5 billion money laundering scheme, over the years, Pras Michel found himself becoming the FBI's most wanted rapper. With multiple federal charges involving money laundering, campaign finance violations, illegal lobbying, and witness tampering, Pras Michel landed himself in a lot of trouble, all because he wanted to expand his career. And this is how it happened. So Pras Michel began his career when he met Lauryn Hill in high school, and they began making music together under the group name Time. Then Pras' cousin Wyclef joined the group, and they changed their name to the Fugees. They released their first hip-hop album, Blunted on Reality, and got a good amount of buzz. They then began working on their biggest album ever, The Score. It was released in 1996 and became one of the best-selling hip-hop albums of all time. They were nominated for 3 Grammys and won 2. The Fugees were very successful, and following all of their success, they all branched out and began doing their own thing. Obviously, I glossed over a lot of information, but that's because I'm trying to get to the real meat and potatoes here. In late 1997, the Fugees all began working on their own solo careers, and Pras created his hit song Ghetto Superstar. He later released an album of the same title. While Pras wasn't quite as successful as his counterparts in the Fugees, he still was and is an extremely accomplished artist. He had 2 songs hit the top 40s on the Billboard Hot 100. His song Ghetto Superstar was nominated for a Grammy, and he even got to work with Queen. But as time went on and his groupmates were creating much more successful solo careers for themselves, Pras wanted to reinvent himself. He wanted to take more of a political activism and entrepreneurial route, similar to other artists like Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z, Dr. Dre, and 50 Cent, who have all established themselves as much more than just rappers.
And I think what he was trying to do was trying to figure out a role for himself outside of music, as trying to make himself sort of like a cultural ambassador and try to be somebody who can broker deals. But if you don't know the water you're playing with in that, it's best to leave that alone unless you got a team around you who really knows how to navigate that.
Pras began expanding outside of music. For example, he started a business called Blackshire that was supposed to create the first blockchain phone. Although I'm not sure anyone knew what this meant, including Pras himself, and I don't think it worked out that well. He also did a TED Talk a couple of years ago, so it's pretty obvious the direction he was trying to take. Then Pras also decided to get into film and began working on a documentary about Skid Row. After filming the documentary, where he went undercover as a homeless man on Skid Row for 9 days, he decided he needed a break from LA, so he went to New York. Then in 2006, as Pras was diversifying his career and chilling in New York, he met a Malaysian businessman named Jho Low. A promoter called Pras and asked him to come out to a club to entertain a whale in town, which is a word that they use to describe someone with a very high net worth. Pras was told that Jho Low was loaded and liked to hang out with celebrities. At first, Pras was hesitant, as 1, he wasn't a big fan of clubs, and 2, most normal people don't want to go out with some random person they don't know. However, because of all the rumors about Jho Low, Pras decided to go. They went out one night, and one group claimed to be the richest in the room, saying they would buy everyone drinks. But Jho Low didn't want to be outdone, so he gave the MC $20,000 and then said he would buy everyone a bottle, and that he would buy everyone in the club across the street a bottle as well. Pras assumed that within 20 minutes, his first time ever meeting Jho Low, that Low spent about $1 million. This, of course, fascinated Pras. But who is Jho Low, and why does he have so much money? Jho Low was a man who had been plotting to get rich his whole life. When he was in college, he began making connections, one of which was with the stepson of the future Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib Razak. When Najib became Prime Minister of Malaysia, Jho Low had created a firm that would broker deals between countries, and he helped broker a deal for Najib. This helped Jho Low gain the trust of Najib, who later was convinced by Jho Low to create a sovereign wealth fund for Malaysia called the One Malaysia Development Berhad, or 1MDB. A sovereign wealth fund is basically just a pool of money that a country uses to help diversify its economy and better itself. But Jho Low had other plans in mind. 1MDB promised many things, like turning Malaysia's capital city into the Wall Street of Asia. However, immediately after starting the $1 billion fund, Jho Low said he was going to invest all of it in a Saudi oil company. But instead, he gave himself $700 million under the guise of a shell company and sent the other $300 million to the actual company. This was the very beginning of his scheme, and after giving himself $700 million in cash, he began partying and trying to get close to the rich and famous. He would pay celebrities to come to his parties and give them gifts as well. And he was handing out tons of money like it was nothing, paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars just to show up. He actually gave Kim Kardashian $350,000 to buy a Ferrari just as a gift. Apparently, he was throwing parties with people like Kanye West, Britney Spears, Kim Kardashian, Usher, Jamie Foxx, Leonardo DiCaprio, and many more. Pras Michel was one of the people who was invited to these parties, and after seeing the kind of money that Jho Low was spending, Pras was very interested in him. Ironically enough, one of the things that Jho Low got involved in was funding the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, which earned him personal thanks from Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. Apparently, even Jordan Belfort, the scammer who the movie was about, knew that Jho Low was up to some fishy business. Then Jho Low got a bunch of investment money from Goldman Sachs, with many people there knowing he was up to something, but he paid them off along with keeping billions of dollars of investment money all to himself. He also kept paying off Najib to keep him happy. Goldman Sachs raised $6.5 billion for 1MDB through 3 bond sales. But what helped investigators eventually catch on is that Goldman Sachs earned $600 million from these sales, which apparently is 10 times the normal amount a bank makes on bond sales.
It was a total red flag, right? It just didn't make sense. As we got deeper and deeper and deeper into it, the more it didn't make sense.
Jho Low took about $4.5 billion of that $6.5 billion raised and kept it for himself, whilst divvying up the rest of the money among other investments and scams. One of the things that Low did to make it look like he was investing in real companies and doing legitimate business is the use of lookalike companies. Low would set up these shell businesses with very similar names to real companies or companies he claimed to be working with so he could pocket the money.
There is no Abar Investments Limited within the corporate structure of Abar. And that was something that became a pattern through all of our reporting. We found that there was these lookalike companies frequently used, and that was a big revelation for us.
After doing that, he would transfer the money through tons of other companies and bank accounts so that it would be very hard for investigators to figure out where the money was coming from, and for a while, it worked. At that point in time, it was believed that Jho Low had the most spending power on earth. But where did Pras Michel fit into this billion-dollar scheme? After Pras was introduced to Jho Low at the nightclub in New York, Low invited him to come out to Malaysia and perform. Like I mentioned earlier, this is around the time that Low was assembling a team of celebrities that he basically paid to hang out with him. Obviously, I can't speak for whether or not they actually liked him, but since he was paying most of them, I can't imagine they were that close. Interestingly enough, Pras didn't want to be another one of those people who just smiled and nodded as they took Low's money. At the time, Pras was actually much more interested in Obama, who was on his way to becoming president. He had met Obama before at a fundraiser and became very fascinated with him and his politics. Eventually, after hanging around him, he became a campaign surrogate for Obama and was branching out into the world of politics. 6 years went by without Low and Pras talking, until in 2012 when the two reunited. Apparently, around this time they actually became friends, or at least talked and hung out regularly. As Rolling Stone said, when they first met, Low seemed happy just to have a famous rapper by his side. 6 years later, each man had emerged from a chrysalis of self-actualization. Pras was now an issues-driven documentary filmmaker, aspiring private equity investor, and Obama surrogate. Low was a serious player in Hollywood. Now each had something the other needed. In 2012, Pras was invited to Obama's re-election campaign fundraiser, and Low found out. He wanted to join Pras in Miami and sent him $1 million to hand out among his friends to donate to the campaign. This is called having straw donors, and having a foreign criminal send all that money to donate to the campaign, while misleading where the money came from, is illegal. Apparently, over the course of Obama's campaign, Low sent Pras $21 million. Pras donated $1 million under his name and gave out almost $900,000 to 20 straw donors. Pras' defense would later claim that he just wanted Obama to win since he was and had been a big fan of his. However, the Justice Department viewed this as Pras and Low conspiring to circumvent federal law against foreign influence so they could buy access to Obama. Low had been getting closer and closer to Obama, befriending the vice chairman of the re-election campaign, Frank White Jr. His sister actually is married to Michelle Obama's cousin, so this guy was very close to the family. Eventually, Low, due to his friendship with Mr. Frank White Jr., was able to make his way into the White House, meet Obama, and even get a picture with him. By this point, Jho Low was rich, well-connected, and had a little bit of power. He liked to live like a king too, throwing himself birthday parties with performers like Kanye West, Busta Rhymes, Q-Tip, Pharrell, and even Psy. Him and Pras even celebrated New Year's twice, celebrating in Sydney and then flying back to the US to celebrate again. For this particular adventure, they were accompanied by Jamie Foxx, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Jonah Hill. However, things took a turn for the worse when his plans to get close to the Obama administration backfired. In 2015, the FBI and DOJ opened an investigation into Low and the entire 1MDB scam. Pras Michel was one of the people they quickly identified as being close to Low. In 2016, they announced that they were going to seize $1 billion in 1MDB financed assets. After this, Low decided to head to Beijing in an attempt to get close with the Chinese government since the American American government clearly was not cooperating. After Trump was elected though, he thought maybe he could work his way into the Trump administration, or at least get the Justice Department to get off his tail. Low told Pras about the situation he was in and asked Pras if he knew anyone who could help him get close to the Trump administration, so Pras called an old friend. I think it is important to note that Pras was told that all of these allegations were lies, and he was also told that Low was struggling to operate his business because of all the legal issues that were going on, claiming his lawyers weren't great and things were moving too slowly. So it seems like Pras kind of just wanted to help out his friend rather than knowingly getting involved in a huge lobbying scam. At least that's the argument his defense was making. So Pras called his friend Nikki Lum Davis, a TV producer and conservative donor. She reached out to Elliot Broidy, who was the vice chair of the Trump Victory Committee and the deputy finance chair of the Republican National Committee. Pras, Nikki, and Elliot came up with a plan to lobby the Department of Justice so that they would stop investigating Jho Low. Pras made sure to tell the others that Low was not a bad guy and that the investigation was unnecessary. Low paid Elliot $8 million up front and said he would give him $75 million if they succeeded in 6 months and $50 million if they took a year. Another employee at the DOJ set up 2 shell companies to receive the payments. Low hired Chris Christie and Trump's lawyer Mark Koswitz to help him with his stuff that was seized. The 3 flew to Hong Kong to meet with Low, who was accompanied with a Chinese official who was the Vice Minister of Public Security. The official, whose name was Sun Lijun, asked them if they could get the White House to extradite a billionaire named Guo Wengui. I might have mispronounced some of these names, so I apologize in advance. So it's getting a little confusing right now. But basically, to sum it up, after Low fled to China and tried to get close to the United States government, the Chinese government tried to take advantage of Low and get something out of him, which was extraditing the Chinese billionaire. It's just mind-boggling to me that Pras Michel of the Fugees was wrapped up in this huge international scandal. Anyways, one day Pras found himself being sent anonymous messages telling him to meet the anonymous people at the Four Seasons Hotel in New York City, and he was instructed to circle around the hotel to make sure he wasn't being followed. It was at this point that Pras knew he had gotten in too deep to something he had no business being in. He was taken into a room by 2 Chinese men in suits who brought him to Sun Lijun. Basically, Sun was mad that he never got the meeting with the Trump administration that he was promised. Apparently, the US Attorney General Jeff Sessions wanted China to send back 3 Americans, including a pregnant lady, and Sun was asking Pras what he thought he should do. Pras said he should send them back and maybe they could get into good favor with the US government. Sun then pulled out his phone and called Xi Jinping, the president of China, and told him to send the lady home. Pras asked who Sun was talking to and was shocked to hear that it was Xi himself. So, if you're still following, basically Low's attempts to lobby the Trump administration and China's attempts to use that to their advantage failed, and Pras Michel, Grammy-winning rapper, found himself right in the middle of it.
Although he's a famous music star, Michel in recent years has reinvented himself as an activist and businessman. And the allegations in this trial focus on work he did on behalf of Jho Low, a Malaysian mogul and international fugitive wanted for allegedly stealing billions from Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund, 1MDB.
The spring after meeting with Sun Lijun in New York, Pras was eating lunch when 2 FBI agents approached him and asked whether or not he had met any Chinese officials at the Four Seasons Hotel. They pulled out multiple pictures of Chinese men and Pras was able to identify the photographs. Pras cooperated with them and explained the situation, which probably was not the best idea. Bloomberg said, "It often takes years of painstaking work for FBI agents to identify people collaborating with foreign governments." But now Michel had come to them, happy even to identify some of his contacts abroad. Based on everything he knew and had shared with the FBI agents, they were able to get him with multiple charges. What sucks about this situation in particular is the fact that other people like Frank White Jr., the guy working with Trump, got no charges. Elliot Broidy was pardoned and Nikki Lum Davis pleaded guilty for lesser charges and was sentenced to only 2 years in prison. People who worked in the government or worked in government adjacent positions were let off the hook. Meanwhile, Pras Michel was facing 10 criminal counts including conspiracy to defraud the US, witness tampering, and acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government. He's currently facing up to 20 years in prison, and despite being convicted in 3 days by the jury, he's calling for a new trial because apparently his lawyers used AI. Not going to go too deep into that, but it's some pretty weird stuff. He also didn't take a plea deal for whatever reason, which definitely could have helped his sentence. Regardless, Pras has yet to be sentenced. Pras has recently reflected on the situation, on how he landed himself in the middle of one of the biggest international scandals in recent history. He said, "I was one of those people who was just dabbling. I never thought I would be full-time into politics. I realized politics is not for me. The problem with politics is this, it's that the people within politics, they're dirtier than the people who are not in politics. politics. So it does seem like Pras got too deep into a situation he had no place being in. A lot of people make the argument that Pras was a good guy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I sort of agree. But there were multiple points where he probably could have thought, maybe I shouldn't be helping route millions of dollars to US officials so they stop investigating my friend. But it's also possible he felt his life was threatened, so I can't really say what was on his mind. Pras also allegedly pocketed $70 million for the attempted lobbying of the Trump administration and $18 million for the Obama campaign straw donors. And while all of this legal stuff has been going on here in the United States, the man behind all of the trouble, Jho Low, is hiding away in China. The Malaysian government has been trying to extradite him back to Malaysia, but no one can find him. There have been supposed sightings of him in Shanghai and Macau, with some believing he lives in Macau, but so far, after stealing billions, nothing has happened to him. However, the people who have really suffered from this situation are the people of Malaysia, who now have a government that is billions of dollars in debt, and the people of Malaysia are the ones who have to feel the effects of that immense debt. In the comment section under a video about the 1MDB scam, someone commented, "For non-Malaysians, this may just be a wow, that's insane documentary. But for Malaysians like myself, it was a nightmare. We are still dealing with the terrible financial consequences of 1MDB. So yeah, this is a crazy story. I had to cover it. If you guys know any other crazy stories, let me know in the comments below. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe as well if you're not already subscribed. Yeah, other than that, this has been Matty Balls. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.